All right, guys, come with me on my morning chicken routine. Some of the mamas are already out with their babies and they already know the deal. All right, I'm getting to it, mama, getting to it. I give each container of feed about that much for the day, and I have two containers, so it'll be two of these. Our hens are free-ranging chickens, so the majority of their diet is going to come from foraging. So whatever they forage, insects, seeds, all that good stuff. Now, what I like to do is get another little handful of seed and just make a strip. It usually thins out the crowd between these two because they get a little overcrowded, overrun. So just having some seed, some feed on the ground kind of helps thin out that crowd a little bit. So something else that I like to do that is really crucial, especially if you're raising chicks, I like to put their feed in a separate container, of course, because they have a different diet. Chicks have different needs. And what I've done is I've taken this feeder, I've had to bungee it to this fence, because what a hen will try to do is a mama hen especially, she'll try to walk up there and she'll scratch at it, knock the whole thing over, and that will just defeat the purpose of having the feeder there to begin with. And the reason I like this feeder is because these holes to access the feed is small enough for a chick's head to go through, but a hen, an adult chicken, cannot get their head in there to access that feed. So the chicks have all access to feed and they don't have to worry about these greedy hens taking all their food. So that is the purpose of that the baby chicks have access to feed throughout the day if they need it, and don't have to worry about being bothered with hens who are attempting to eat their feed. So as you can see right now, the chicks are in there with mama. After I release the adult chickens from their coop, that is going to change because they will not be able to be in there with the adult chickens there. So, which you'll see. I've also filled water containers. I've actually made a separate water container specifically for the chicks, so they have access to water that they can reach, because this container is a little too high. So this is one of my favorite parts that I like to do throughout the day. I call this releasing the Kraken. So they all know the routine by now. They all line up by the door. All right, you are released. And they know where the feed and the water is by now, so they just make a beeline straight to it. There is nothing funnier than watching a rooster run. So usually by this time when they're all out, I take this time to collect the eggs. Got some beautiful, beautiful eggs for breakfast this morning. All right, so this is typically how the morning goes. I attempted to do this video live and it just did not work out. The video ended up being really blurry. The internet connection was terrible, so I just have to do this pre-recorded. But this is basically it. The containers that I've used are very unconventional containers, and that's the thing too. When you have chickens, I mean, you can think outside of the box. You don't have to be traditional. So these containers were actually gifted to me from my mother. She was out at a store called Dirt Cheap. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that store, but things are dirt cheap there. And she found these containers for like 50 cents a piece. And she, didn't know what she was going to use them for, but they were 50 cents a piece. So she just grabbed a few of them and ended up asking me if I could use them. And I was like, yes. And this is what I thought would be the best use for them. So they are now the feeders. And the reason I go the unconventional route, because when I did try the feeders with the plastic ones, your typical plastic feeder and waterer, they didn't last throughout the season. They would break apart and kind of corrode and kind of disintegrate. During the summer, it would just be too hot, and then really, the cold weather out here, it was just too much. We're in the south southern United States, and the weather here fluctuates like crazy, and I think it's too much for some materials. They end up corroding, breaking away, and I have to re-up every year, and it just got to be a bit much. So I ended up going with the metal. They would rust, and they would also make a lot of noise, like a lot of creaking noise, and I didn't feel comfortable putting WD-40, on there, especially when the chickens eat out of it. So that was a no-go. So I ended up going the unconventional route and getting these, and they work really, really well. So I fill this one with water. The only issue is when we have chicks that are being raised out here, just make sure you give them their own container of water, which those work out really, really well. And as you can see here, you see as the other adult chickens are annihilating their feed, the chicks have safe access to feed that is exclusively for them. Feed and water. Now, if you notice that your chickens start to fight and have little squabbles, that is okay. That is perfectly normal. Chickens have a pecking order established. So they have a hierarchy of superiority, and every now and then a correction has to be made. So, one of the more superior chickens may tag one of them on the back of the neck. Just a little gentle instruction, gentle correction peck to the head or the back of the neck, and it's all good. It's just to kind of keep everybody in line, keep everybody in their place. And this is why chickens are so easy to raise. They basically govern themselves. You just throw some feed down, make sure they have access to fresh water, and especially free-ranging chickens are so low maintenance. A little bit of feed, a little bit of water, and they basically just have this entire forest area to just get all the insects and seeds and berries they want. They even, believe it or not, these little chicks follow their parents out there and learn to forage. That's that correction I was telling you about. So it's all good. That is perfectly normal. And the chicks are smarter than people think. They notice to get out of Dodge when that happens. And they just cut through the cattle fencing and get on their side. Another thing I like about these containers is when it starts to get really low, the chickens will knock it over to get the very last bit of feed, which I love. These feed containers end up being bone dry by the time they're done. So not an ounce of feed is wasted. They eat everything. And then they just kind of go up and perch when they're nice and full, as you see the babies doing over there. Let me see if I can get a little video of them. So you got a little baby perched up here. Mama's on the other side calling them. So when they're nice and full and content, they'll just kind of lounge most of the morning, and then in the afternoon, they'll start foraging out in the forest. So this is the routine. They'll come and eat, relax, maybe take a little dirt bath, and then it's off into the forest. And they stick together as a nice little group. Even the mothers are out there with their chicks showing them how to forage, which is great. I don't got to raise those little babies. The mamas raise them. They do an exceptional job. We have not lost a chick yet, knock on wood, or a chicken for that matter. And we do have a lot of predatory birds in the area. There's a fox that we've seen here a lot. And then, of course, just domestic dogs have been a big problem in this area. But whiskey usually takes care of that. So as you can see here, Mama tried to get some feed, and she was not very successful because their adult chicken heads can't fit into those holes. So all that feed is for them. So that works out really, really well. There's a little watering hole. This is basically it. You open the door, you check out some feed, make sure they have fresh water, and they do the work. And you get fresh eggs every morning. The best tasting eggs, the most delicious. And they're totally worth it. And each hen, believe it or not, does have a personality of their own. You have some that are more friendlier than others, some that are more take charge, in charge, but they all have their very own personalities. Some are a little bit more docile, some are more shy, others are a bit more skittish, but they do have their own charm and character. It makes them loads of fun to watch. Sometimes I'll just pull my chair up here in the mornings and just watch them. I do the same with the goats. I'll just pull up a chair and just watch. Watch the goats goat and watch the chickens chicken. What are you girls talking about? Are you guys over here gossiping? Oh my. Interesting. You don't say. And like I said, when they're done here, they're going to go out into the forest. And we have 2 roosters. So we have Trax right there. And then we have, where's our little fella at? I guess Trax is keeping him away from the moment. But it's Trax's son. So these hens and chicks are accompanied by 2 roosters when they go out and forage. And that has actually worked really, really well. We haven't had any issues with that formula. And we do not want any more roosters. We are done with the roosters. We just need 2. We have about 22 hens, and 2 roosters is more than enough. You want a rooster, if you plan on having a rooster, you want a rooster for every, I would say, 8 to 10 hens. So with our 22, we have just enough. And it's good to just have a standby rooster in case something ever happens to either one of them. We still have a rooster available to help protect. There he is. There's the son. There's Trax's son right there. Now they get along well because he grew up here. So, excuse the noise in the background. That's the trash truck coming to pick up the trash. But he grew up here, so we have no problems with them. However, he still has to know his place, and he maintains a distance when Trax is feeding with his hens. But they usually work as a really good team together. They really, don't bother each other. Every now and then, Trax has to make a correction when his son gets out of line. But other than that, they get along swimmingly. They at night, they are next to each other on the perch. See, he's trying to get him a lady, and Trax is like, "You're not going about it the right way, son." So he's mad. Don't mess with my girls. So instances like that don't happen very often. That's usually pretty rare, but or uncommon, I should say. But when it does happen, Trax is nearby, and that's one thing I'll say. He does not play about his hens. He takes really good care of them. All right, guys. Well, that's the morning routine. I hope you learned something. Most importantly, I hope that you learned that maintaining chickens is really not that difficult. It's fairly easy, especially if you free range your chickens. They just need a coop, some feed, and some fresh water daily. And maybe a rooster or 2. Bye, guys. Thanks for watching.